So today's webinar is integrating Microsoft Dynamics CRM to Microsoft Dynamics GP. So in this session, what we're going to cover is, some of the things on why you would implement an integration, the types of integrations that you can do, some of the integration tools that are available on the marketplace today, and then we're going to demonstrate 2 or 3 of the tools depending on how much time we have, so you can get a flavor of what the integration tools give to you. So why do we integrate? So integration obviously is a function of exchanging data with external systems and your financial systems. So this is a result of a cost-benefit analysis that obviously is more beneficial to integrate as far as rekeying data back in. And what kind of businesses or systems do you integrate into your ERP systems that you typically see? Membership management system, customer relationship management system, e-commerce systems, obviously, any type of external systems that you have, and potentially inventory management systems that are external to your system. Some of the types of integrations that you would typically can use these tools beyond CRM is maybe integrating payables transactions from your membership management system, GL and AP integrations from files, or a payroll integration maybe from ADP. We talked about CRM systems. Obviously, that's what the content of this webinar is about. Or there's some other critical systems that you may want to integrate in the system. So all these tools that we're going to be showing you today give you that flexibility beyond just doing CRM integrations. So what types of integrations? So when we're trying to figure out the right integration tool, because all these tools can provide different features and functionality, is the first thing is who's going to be running this tool and what are you going to be doing? So if it's a tool that is simply for integrations, and that's your requirement, you may look for something that's more developer-driven as opposed to end-user-driven. The second thing that you may want to look at is the technology that you're going to be integrating with. Are we going to be CSV files, XML files? Are we going to be looking at web services? Is it some type of JavaScript integration that we have to work with? All those are important as far as selecting which one of these integration tools you would use. What are the business requirements? So can the tool support the business rules that the business requires when data is coming into the system? Obviously, you have your standard business logic that the applications enforce when you're integrating, but are there other rules as well that the system or the integration needs to be able to employ in the software while doing integrations? So how flexible is the tool in building these rules for your integration? Obviously, you want to have a flow diagram to make sure that these integration tools can support it. So if we're looking for instance, some type of Active Directory integration across different platforms, can the tool support that? Can it pass that information across, or do you need some type of integration method? How much data will be integrated? Some tools are slower than others. So if you need a highly transactional volume integration, then you may look for something that's more of a developer tool as opposed to an ETL tool that can be slower in integrating transactions. If you're doing very few transactions, any tool could be the best tool for you. So it changes your thought process on what you're going to be selecting. And does the integration need to be synchronous or asynchronous? Meaning that, does it need to be run both ways at the same time, or can it run one way, do its updates, and come back the other way? Very important, because some tools can be synchronous, some tools only work in an asynchronous mode. So that's a very important selection criteria. So some of the integration tools that are available on the market today, obviously we have eConnect from Microsoft. So eConnect from Microsoft or their web services is a developer-driven tool. And for these other tools are essentially the foundation that these other tools use to integrate to Dynamics, whether it be CRM, GP, AX, NAV, and those types of tools. What eConnect is a series of web services that .NET developers can use to integrate any system to the Dynamics platform. It's very fast. It's probably your fastest integration, but it's very developer-centric. Smart Connect from E1 is a ETL tool that's end-user driven. Scribe is another ETL tool from Scribe Software. It's been around for a long time. Jitterbit is a new player. It's been around for a couple of years. And then you have the Dynamics CRM adapter, which is now called Dynamics Connector from Microsoft. So a little bit more details about the eConnect. So eConnect was introduced by Microsoft, version 7.5. It's a very powerful integration tool. It provides the entry points for almost every module within the Dynamics platform. Some of the pros with the eConnect system is that you can integrate it with any application. It has many built-in, predefined entry points. It has the ability to integrate to third-party products. So since it is a developer tool, you can add on to it, whether it be additional eConnect nodes or altering the procedures to update third-party products. It gives you more flexibility as a developer. It's very fast. So if you have a need for an integration for thousands of transactions, eConnect may be your better solution because that data can come in very fast to the system. It can be a two-way integration. It's developer-driven, so that's more a developer decision than more of an eConnect capability. We talked about the web services, so they had the web services that for developers and for other developer tools. And then you have the ability to add pre and post changes, so triggering events to track changes in the system to integrate to other systems. Some of the cons of eConnect, it is developer-centric. It's not an end-user tool, so it's something that comes with Dynamics, but don't expect to install it and be able to use it if you're not a .NET developer. And then any type of source data changes could require intervention, meaning that it could violate some business rules if you don't use it correctly. Some of the types of things that you would use eConnect implementations, e-commerce is a very popular use for eConnect. Some inventory management, bringing in POs and updating pricing and things like that. Order processing, we've seen people use it with SharePoint integration for budgets. Obviously, a lot of people use it for CRM as opposed to one of these other ETL tools, and POS and EDI integrations, eConnect. SmartConnect is a end-user tool, but it can also be used as developers to integrate with their applications. So it was introduced in 2008 by E1. E1 is based out of Australia, but they also have offices in Fargo, North Dakota. The current version is 14 of the eConnect product, and it supports all the versions that are out there and support today, 2010, 2013, and 2015. Some of the pros with SmartConnect, it's very flexible. So it's a mapping tool. So you can map it to any of the exposed eConnect nodes that are available out there now with Dynamics. So you have a lot of capabilities with it, as well as configuring the integrations with code, your own business rules and things like that. So it's very adaptable to the end user. Data imports are fast, not as fast as eConnect because it is going through a mapping tool. So it has to take your source data, map it to the destination, process it through whatever rules that you built in the integration, and then put the data into Great Plains. So it's not as fast as a developer writing with the eConnect, but it is faster than if you're familiar with Integration Manager. So it is a fast tool. Can be used by non-developers. That's probably one of the bigger aspects of this product, is that non-developers can use this. But it is strong enough that you can write VB.NET or C# code in it to do some advanced programming if you need to. If you're using GP and Extender, you can integrate to Extender or other third-party products. It is a two-way, and that's what we're going to show today. It is a two-way integration between CRM and GP. So I'll show that configuration on how it can be a two-way integration. And then it can be used to integrate with Excel InfoPath and other products as well. So you can put a button on an Excel document to integrate the two systems, or write a direct integration into CRM or Excel through their mapping tool and their web services to create an integration. One of the cons that I think of Smart Connect is that it doesn't have its own messaging queue. It's not a big deal. It uses Microsoft Message Queue, but Microsoft Message Queue is sort of old technology, can be flaky at times. So it doesn't really, for high volume transactions, it can get unreliable. Some of the other tools that we have their own messaging queue that seem to be a little bit more reliable. The other thing, from a support perspective, from E1, they do consider this as a developer tool, even though it's very usable by end users. So some of the support can be a little slower compared to something that's more end user driven, because they're expecting to be dealing with people that are more technical savvy. So some of the Smart Connect integrations that we've seen out there, dropship XML documents to developers, so creating outputs of XML documents to send to vendors, creating custom nodes to integrate third-party products, for time and expense projects or integrations, obviously geo transactions. All of these can do geo transactions, scheduling bulk integrations from POS systems or other external systems. So you get a invoice file from a large vendor, you drop a file into the directory, those kinds of bulk imports. Stock refreshing of the system, and then real-time integrations between GP and CRM. So Smart Connect has the flexibility to do a lot of types of integrations. Scribe is a product that was developed by a company up north in Connecticut. It was shortly released right after the first version of Microsoft CRM was released back in 2002, 2003 timeframe. Some of the pros with Scribe is it is a very powerful configuration tool when it comes to integrations. So it's designed for larger integrations, a lot more flexibility in building these integrations. It has the built-in debugging tools that some of these other tools do not have. So it makes it very nice when you're building an integration and to be able to test and validate that integration between the two systems to make sure that it's operating the way you're expecting it to operate. Data imports are fast, probably on the same speed as the Smart Connect, but they are fast. It can be used by developers and non-developers, so there is a GUI interface. You'll see that in our demonstration. But so it is a mapping tool, so it's very easy for users to pick up and understand. It can run as a standalone integration tool if you want to, so it doesn't have to integrate with the out-of-box solution CRM GP. You can use it as a pure ETL tool between systems that have nothing to do with Microsoft. So it is a standalone ETL tool. It is a two-way integration product, just like Smart Connect and some of the tools out there. And one of the nice things is they do have built-in adapters for all these products: GP, Nav, Exchange, Act, Pivotal, and some of these other systems out there. So drop and go integrations are already built so that if you do want to set up a CRM GP integration, you're probably 90% there for most of the integrations, and then you can add on to those rules that they have built into their integrations and enhance them if need be. Some of the cons, comparing this to, say, Smart Connect, there are more capabilities with the Scribe Top, so the learning curve is probably greater. Not a ton greater, but it is greater. And there's some limitations on the adapters, primarily Salesforce and SalesLogix. Salesforce being a web tool, it is kind of a different animal as far as the data schemas and how to interface with. So there are some limitations with that, but when you're dealing with the Microsoft products, it's pretty much wide open on what you can do with it. Up ahead there. The Dynamics GP connector, or Dynamics connector, was a product that was released when GP 10, and it was primarily for GP when it was first released. Very powerful configuration. It's designed for to be used by non-developers. It is a two-way integration. Since it's been released from GP, it now supports SLAX and CRM as well as Nav, and that's not listed here. So all those products, you can use the connector to interface with CRM. It is a server-based product, which is kind of nice. So you install on the server. and it's all configured there. It's written entirely in .NET, so it's very compatible, and you can ensure compatibility from version to version, since it is a Microsoft product, and it utilizes all the APIs from Microsoft, so 100% Microsoft. So if you're looking for just a pure GP to CRM tool, this isn't a bad choice to make. Anything outside of the default integrations requires a developer to create for you. Not a bad thing. It's just like using eConnect, but you can't create a new mapping from one generic ODBC-driven system and pull it into CRM. So that's the one limitation, but it can be built, and you can add in additional adapters if you want to. And then the system administrator has to install it because it is a server-based product. It's not an end-user tool, unlike some of the other tools, Smart Connect and Scribe. An end user can install those tools and configure it on their system. So now we're going to go through the demo, and in the demo we're going to look at 3 products. We're going to look at the connector, Scribe, and Smart Connect, and just go through some of the capabilities of those products so you can get a flavor of them, see how they work, how you map to different systems. Our demo is primarily between GP and CRM. So if you do have a question about integrating with the other products, simply enter a chat message and we can answer those at the end. So I'll be going over the Dynamics Connector and Smart Connect. Scott here, who hasn't talked yet, will be going over Scribe because that's his area of expertise. So I'm going to cancel all this here. And let's pull up the Dynamics GP Connector because that's a quicker little demonstration. So if no one has seen this before, this is the Dynamics GP Connector. And as you can see, I have a lot of the maps already defined. So when we're looking at, and I'm going to expand this over here so you can see them, with the connector, you have predefined maps. So you don't have the flexibility, even though GP has a lot more entry ports into the system with their web services, for instance, field service, ETF module, all those types of things in the system. You're limited to what the adapter was developed for. And the reason why they did that is because these are the entry points out-of-the-box functionality with CRM. Okay? But it does not mean that a developer, if you added new entities into the system, that they couldn't create a new map. And the maps, these are maps here. So you click on here, new map. So when you click on here, you would get an additional map. And so they can create their own maps that they would show over here, and they would define if it was a source, what kind of source map it is, and what kind of destination map it could be. So a source would be the CRM, and the destination would be your Dynamics product, whether it be SL, GP, NAV, or AX. So you can see here, look at all my maps here as my source maps. We have a few in here that aren't defined. So I have an applicant map there that deals with HR, but there's other things here we can do as well. So once we add the map, so the first thing is you add the map to the server, and then you click on the map. So here I get an account to a GP customer. It takes a couple seconds for it to come up. And looking at the maps here for the GP customer, I can do a lot of things with this. So I can deactivate it, obviously. So it's a server-based product, and I can define how often it looks for changes in my source. Okay, so my source is the CRM account entity. So this is particularly scheduled for every 45 seconds. Beginning at a certain time, it's going to look for changes. And it's going to look for data that's modified after a certain date. And it also tells me when it was last month. Now, right now it's deactivated because I'm not running anything. Here I can add in filters. So if there's only certain records that I want to come over to as a GP customer, I would add this filter to it. A common filter would be that I only want customers or accounts to come over if there's a customer number field. Because I need a customer number in Great Plains, otherwise it would fail. Down here is the mapping tool. So this is where I'm saying what is going to each one of these fields. So if I look at one of this is a rule. So I'm looking at a field in here and looking at the value. If it's equal to 0, I'm setting the account active status to true, otherwise false. And you can keep drilling into this to look at the different fields here and pick the source fields. Down here for the customer name, this is very simple. I'm just picking a source field, account name, and then that's going to map it to the customer name in Great Plains. But you're limited on what you can integrate to. So this is all predefined things. If the field that you want to integrate to in GP for whatever reason is not available, then you can't integrate to. You would need a developer to add that property into this map so that you can integrate to. So that's one of the cons with it, is it's not an open tool like the other ones that we're going to show you. And then this is the code that gets generated, and this is where you can modify this code, and they call this transformation code. As you can see, if a developer built the map for you or a new map, so say you're integrating CRM and you added a project module yourself, managed code in CRM for projects, and you want to integrate that data to the Great Plains project module. Well, there is a web service for the project module, so you can build this mapping. And this is what a developer would sort of look like. They would build this transformation code to map that data to the project web service so that data would map over. It's work, it's a little bit of work, but it does give you an added amount of control of what you want the system to do. So it's kind of nice. The system supports multiple integrations. So if you happen to have multiple entities within CRM that happen to be different companies that go to different companies in Great Plains, you can create multiple integrations in here and have each integration point to an entity in CRM to a specific company in Great Plains. So you have that flexibility as well. Not a bad tool if you're looking for purely GP out of the box to CRM or one of the other Dynamics ERP products to CRM integrations. The next tool up here is a little more flexible, and this is, we're going to be looking at here, is Smart Connect. So Smart Connect provides a lot of value beyond just integrating GP to CRM. You can essentially integrate either GP or CRM to a variety of different solutions that you are currently using. So it doesn't make a difference on what system you're using externally to GP or CRM. You can use Smart Connect to integrate. We can import, so to give you a little example of an import, you know, if I was in GP and I want to create a simple import, you know, I could create, and I want to import inventory pricing or item pricing. I could pick different types of sources. So bulk data loads is a source, say Excel, Word, InfoPath, those kinds of things that you want to import from, as well as SQL. I can import data that are changes only. So what they would do is create a change log in the source system. So it only brings over the changed records. Or a real-time event occurred. Okay, so an action happened on the source system. It would trigger Smart Connect to fire off the integration and pull that data in immediately. So you have the option to do many different things. So I'm going to do bulk data load, and just give you a little example of something outside of Great Plains. And as I'm going through this, I'm just going to give you some ideas on what's going on here. So I have a little spreadsheet here. So my data source is Excel. And then I have a little import here because I'm going to do price list here. And So as you can see, when I picked the Excel sheet, it told me how many sheets I had in there. I only have one. I'm going to validate to make sure my connection works. It was successful. And then it needs to have key fields, so I'm going to make my item number the key field. And then I can preview it and see, make sure that it's not going to return any data because it is an Excel document, but it tells me that I have columns in there. But the beauty of this, if anybody here has used Integration Manager, is that when you get down to the destination, and this is true with Scribe as well, is that you have a lot of destination options that you can send it to, right? So I can send it directly to a SQL file, a SQL stored procedure if I'm a developer and I create a stored procedure because I'm going to handle everything I want. I can send it directly to CRM. I can pick GP. So if we're familiar with the Integration Manager, you'll notice that there's a lot of different options here that are available to integrate to. So this is inventory that I'm going to enter. So I have a lot of options I can import with Integration Manager. So with Smart Connect, Integration Manager, I'm limited to a few things, item master cards and things like that. With Smart Connect, I have everything, and that's the power of the web services. The same thing with Scribe, with that Scott's going to show you. The power of the web services that you have everything that's available to you to do your integrations with. And then I can pick price levels and create new price levels. I have a lot of different things I can do, map it over to it, create it, and those types of things. So very flexible on what we can do. So that's something that's non-integration between CRM and GP. Now to look at one of my CRM to GP integrations, so this is my CRM to GP integration. I'm going to expand things so we can see it here. So very simple. An end user can create this integration themselves. It doesn't require any developer involvement at all. So as long as you have an understanding of the system, and understanding meaning that you know what your organization is, you know what the URL is to get to your CRM system, you know, whatever your organization, :55555, whatever that is, you enter all that information in. You know what an entity is, so these are all your entities. It reads directly from CRM. This is not something that's stored in the system, so it reads the entities real time. So if you create a brand new entity in CRM, it will come up here, okay? So you would see that entity here. So mine is going to the account entity. That's what I'm reading. Since this is a changes only integration, it gives me the option to tell it what I'm tracking. So do I want to track only when people create new accounts and I want to integrate those in, or do I want to track updates and integrate those in, or both, creates and updates? Down here, very simple. I told it I want to go to GP. I went to go to the group, receivables, and then in the group, I picked customers. But I could have picked any of these things that came from CRM. So if in CRM, you know, I gave customer service to be able to enter in cash receipts and apply documents and things like that, I could roll that information in as well. Down here is my mappings. So this is how I mapped it. You know, I was kind of lazy, so I only did a couple fields, but these are all the fields that are available in here. So if I wanted to add an additional thing here, let's go down here and find address information here. So I'm going to go to address line 1, and I want to map this field over here. So the postal code. So I would just come over here and pick that postal code. And now it's mapped. But I have a lot of options here. So predefined, I have options. You know, if they're on hold or not, I can set that flag. On the column itself, I have a lot of flexibility. You know, I can make a column a lookup in a SQL table if that's part of my integration. Maybe I have some data outside that I need to validate against. I may have some rolling columns, meaning there's a built-in fields, say the next journal entry number, the next payable transaction number, those types of things. I can have constants in there. Calculations, I can do calculations. The calculations are very flexible, so I can put code behind it, .NET code. I can make it very simple scripting if I want to. So you have a lot of options as far as what you wanted to do with the system. And to run it, I can do a couple of different things as well. I can schedule this to run every 5 minutes, every hour, or I can make it a manual process to run. Or I could have changed this integration on the source side to be a real-time event. So it would look for something to happen in the CRM source system to integrate and fire off this integration. But I'm just going to go ahead and run this, but I'm going to first make a change just so you can see what's happening here. So I'm going to go into my CRM system, and I'm going to pick on Aaron Fitz, who is a customer in my system. I'm going to change his name, and if it all works well, we should see it integrate. And I'm going to change his postal code. So I'm going to change his name to testing. And where is his postal code at? Down here. Oh, there you go. And I'm going to take out the last digits here. And I'm going to save my changes. So right now, Smart Connect is tracking the changes. And this is saved. So I'm going to minimize this. And if I go to preview here, I should see my changes. And you see here I have some changes that are waiting to be integrated. So I'm going to go ahead and run my integrations. Or successful. And if I go over to Great Plains, oh, I quit out. Sorry about that, guys. Let me fire up Great Plains here real quick. Just getting there. And I need to turn something off here real quick so we don't get an error. That's the error I didn't want to get. This. And let's see if our change took place here. And there's our test. And as you can see, the zip code, the last 4 digits were removed. I'm going to minimize this. So that is Smart Connect. Some of the other features of Smart Connect that we can give a demo on at later times if you're interested in seeing it. Like I said, we can enable any spreadsheet to interface to GP. The system, you can create folder integrations, and what that means is that the system would recognize as soon as you drop the file into a folder, it would fire off the integrations automatically and import it into the system. Obviously, you can export integrations out, and developers can use this as well. So it's not just an end-user tool. If a developer wants to write an application to feed data integrations, it's a nice tool because it eliminates and makes it very simple just to pass data into the map through a web service and let Smart Connect do the mapping between the source data and the destination data, as well as build any rules in there, and build the business logic as part of the ETL process. So it's a nice little developer tool as well you can use. So that's it for Smart Connect. I'm going to pass this over now to Scott to go over, show you some of the things with Scribe.
Excellent. All right, for Scribe, it's very similar to a lot of stuff that Tim showed for Smart Connect. Main thing is it's broken down into two different pieces. You have your, if I can get to it here, you have your console and you have your workbench. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump into the console here first. And as you can see, we've got the dynamic GP to CRM integration set up in here. Basically, the way it works is that we have publishers set up in the system. These work with the adapters that Scribe has to connect directly into either your GP or CRM organization. We've gone ahead and I've created a couple, and then I've got a templated one in here as well. We're going to go ahead and resume this GP publisher, so any changes we make over in GP will come through to our CRM. So you'd go ahead and you'd set up within your GP publisher a variety of different places you'd like to gather your information from. In here, we've gone ahead and set up for your customer. We're going to track similarly to Smart Connect when a record is inserted or created or whether it's updated. And one of the things we do is when that action occurs, it creates a message. And that message is going to be picked up by one of our integration processes. Now, you can have a variety of different publishers on here. And within each publisher, you can have it tracking from a variety of different places within GP, whether you want it to be the customer address, the sales order. So we'll go ahead and we will pull up here. As you can see, we've got it coming from customer, the address, items, and all these have different messages that they're created, which will translate into a different integration process that it's going to grab from. Now, within our integration processes here, you can see all the messages will be coming through relating into this integration process. Now, there's a variety of different integration processes that you can have. Similar to Smart Connect, we can go ahead and drop a file into a folder, and when it is recognized, we can have our file integration here grab that and go ahead and process and run through the mapping. We can have it time-based. So if we want to run something where every evening at around midnight, we want to go through and do an update of our system of everything that happened the day before into our CRM from our GP, or updating our products every night, we can go ahead and run a time-based integration process to go ahead and gather that information and put it over when it's not going to clog up the system with a ton of messages and be allowing you to keep your real-time integration on some of the other integration processes you might have that might be a little more critical, such as your sales orders. You can have query processes where you can query into your GP and say you only want a certain type of records. And with that query process, you'd have it how frequently that query runs. And then, of course, for the CRM and GP integrations, you're going to run it based on a queue. As we said, that message is created whenever a record is inserted or updated into our customer. Well, that message is going to go into a queue that we've got set up. This integration process is going to recognize that and then process this message accordingly. So we've gone in here, we've set up what the steps are going to be. Now we want to make sure that we are going through and that we're going through and telling it how it's going to update. I can grab here my workbench. Here, and we'll just open up the workbench here. Within the workbench, and I'll go ahead and navigate and pull up my DTS here. And within the workbench is where we're going to go ahead and we are going to tell the system where it's going to map to. So we want to say, okay, we've received this message from our system, and what are we going to do with it now? Well, the message comes through and we configure it as our source there. And what we're doing is we're using our adapter here within CRM to access all the pieces within our CRM. Now, it does have some native and known entities that are already captured in here, which you can see within configuring the steps. We can open up our data objects and see that, accounts, notes, the calendar, our contacts are in here. And then we can go ahead and add those into steps. So we can create a little workflow of what we want to do. Now, with a sales order, what you'd want to do is go through and search to find a customer, because that is the critical record you'd want to base everything off of. So you'd go and search and find the customer, and then that way you can take that information and generate the sales order for that customer. In this example, we're just going through and updating a record in GP and having it come through to CRM. So we're going to have an update insert function. And what this is basically doing is looking to see if it can find the record in CRM. If it does, update it, otherwise insert it. Now, the way we're going through that process is we know our steps in there, and I've set a lookup criteria here, where I'm taking the customer number, S2 here, from our source, which is the file that was generated from GP, and matching it to the account number. So the account number here. So it's going to look up based on these two items. It'll look to see if it has the customer number, find the account number. If it matches it, go through with the update. Otherwise, process the record as an insert. Now, in here, I've got part of a map set up. And what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and grab and show you how easy it is. I'm going to grab the address, line 1, and we create the connection. Line 2, create the connection. I can grab my city to my city, state to state is down here, state or province, and then finally, of course, the zip code to the postal code. Now we have our data links all set up. So what we can do is go through now into GP. Grab that. Here. GP? Yeah. There we go. Not one to grab there. Come in here to our cards, sales, customer, and I've got someone set up in here that I've been working with, advanced paper. And as you can see, we've got some information in here in our GP that we want to go ahead and update into our CRM, which is coming back into our CRM here. You can see that advanced paper happens to be missing an address. So we want this information to come across. So we'll go ahead and update something like the phone number, update that to a 2. Save that record. And right now what's happening is in the background, that message is being created, it's going ahead and, because of the update being created, going ahead and dropping into our message queue. Now, our message queue is grabbing that, looking and finding the appropriate DTS to run it up against. And then from there, it'll be updating our record in CRM. We'll just go ahead and do a refresh here. And it might take a moment here for this message to process through. One of the things is, although it is real time, it does have to go through, and it's running asynchronously. So in the background here, it's going to be flushing through. As you can see now, our phone number has been updated, and our address has been added into the system. Now, this is just one of the many integrations you can do. As you saw previously through the console, there were a variety of different messages and integration processes that were running. There's a variety of different ways we can go about in triggering those integration messages. But through Scribe, just like Smart Connect, you have a very strong way to pick and choose and build out how you want to bring your information from GP to CRM and vice versa. So with that, that's our Scribe presentation here. And what we're going to do is we'll go ahead back to our slide deck and open the floor up for questions. Timmy, do we have any questions out there?
We do have one question, and the question is, do tools have limitations on the amount of data that can be integrated?
No, not right off the bat. They don't have any limitations. One thing you will want to consider, though, is Scribe does have two options. They have Scribe On-Site, Insight, and Scribe Online. Now, Scribe Online is a SaaS software that they provide, and the way that they go about their pricing is based on the number of transactions. So the more transactions you might need to process, the higher level tier you'll want to go into for Scribe Online. But with Scribe Insight and Smart Connect and those applications, you're not going to have any limitations on the amount of data that's going through.